My name is Chris Whitley. I am the Nova4 Product Sales Manager for Nuvius, and we are working with CIC on today's webinar, as well as a few more up-and-coming series. And today's webinar is to really talk about Joe, the end user, your average end user that you, sorry, your average employee that you may have. And just some observations and that I've seen in the market. I'm going to go through a little bit of phishing and what we've seen happening with this new working from home, how attacks have been changing around that, and how to create a training for your staff. So maybe you've seen this email come out. So we're seeing this more and more. The largest email increase since last March is webinar invites, and you're seeing them from Zoom, you're seeing them from Teams. It's grown something like 8,000% of webinar invites now make up quite a portion of emails sent on a daily basis. So I've wrote some notes on here, as you can see. So I want access to your system, as many as possible. And I've put a Teams link into there, but who am I sending this this to? And we've seen a whole host now. We've got Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, BlueJeans, Uber conferences, Ring Central. I'm sure that even today you downloaded, received Zoom invites for this webinar, and you were seeing in the press quite a lot of bad news. What's been happening? So some need patching. Some have had some hackers can take over your video calls. We have potential breaches within the GoToMeeting. So it's been well documented, and it's really in the news at the moment. So what can happen? And just a real quick cover. I won't go into too much detail with this, but let's just say I sent out a meeting invite from there. And today, this is on Zoom at the moment. You probably downloaded and executed a little bit of software from that. So, where did that come from? Could I put a malicious code into that? Yes, I could. And what would happen is the remote worker is probably working outside. They might be connected via VPN. So if your user is connected via VPN, they're straight into your system. And if I now can take over that machine or do something with that machine, I'm already into your network. Or it could be that it's just I'm going around it and I'm connecting straight to a web server because I'm working from home. And then maybe we could just harvest some data and record that data from there as well. And maybe we can get a little bit more serious and get into some areas within your network that you don't want us to get to. So just some observations on Facebook. I was scrolling through Facebook last year. It's getting a little bit old now, but I saw Boris Johnson had embraced the working from home ethos. And posted about it. We saw this on LinkedIn. We saw it everywhere. We saw people posting on Facebook, LinkedIn, professional sites, and social, working from home and what they're doing. This one was particularly interesting because if we really looked at the first meeting that he published, it was the same Zoom ID meeting that he also published the next day. So we could tell this was a reoccurring meeting from there. Back then, it was literally last March when this actually took place. There was still the waiting room, still to allow people access, was still not set up. It was actually something that didn't come into place until a bit later. It was one of the areas identified as a weakness with Zoom at that time. So who are these people joining? And this one was taken from the second day, the second posting on Facebook. Who was this iPhone user? How did they know who he was? How did they identify this person? There was no lobby. Did they let that person in accidentally? Who was on there? And today our working life is looking like something from a 70s TV program. Correct me if it's 80s, sort of 60s, maybe. I don't actually know. I presume it's in the 70s here. But just to highlight, in the bottom right-hand corner is my colleague Mike, and Mike has been dressing up quite a lot lately. Mike has been joining different Zooms, different things. He has been sending out a lot of invites, webinar invites to people. And he's been the best one he's done so far is he sent out an invite to 200 people and just said, can we catch up for 15 minutes? And we just wanted to see if how many people would join. He managed to get over 100 people join this webinar, and it took longer than the scheduled 15 minutes for people to realize why they were there and start questioning why they were there. But he's also joined dressed up into multiple different webinars. In fact, I was actually expecting him to be on this one today to see if he got on, but I don't think he is now. So look, the dangers of working from home there. So like, you really should encourage your employees to send conference invites and set up a waiting room. You don't want Mike joining your conference. You don't want people to publish this on social media. You know, when it's not possible to send out your own invite, check with the sender. Just give them a call or send them a separate email. Did you send this invite to me? And check the link is associated to the company. It's quite easy to send out a phishing attack now, which is just a webinar invite. Click the Zoom meeting, download. You're downloading a payload. What is in that payload? Generally, at the bottom right-hand side there, it's highlighted there that this is a know before Zoom one. So just double check. It's something to double check. If it doesn't look right, don't press run on this. And it's a good practice to encourage your employees to do so from there. But do encourage employees to have a little bit of fun there as well. So we have a little bit of conference called bingo. I'm sure right at the beginning I got one wrong there, which is you're on mute. Somebody must have shouted that out. So maybe we can complete a line later. But yeah, just encourage a bit of fun with it to go with it, with these warnings to your employees. So NatWest was quite a big one. NatWest felt the urge at the beginning of last year to publish this on their front page when you logged onto your banking, and it was followed suit quite swiftly by other banks. And it was because this phishing attack was so large and so many people paid out money from their bank account, and it was a TV licensing. Your direct debit bounced and please pay £12. I'm absolutely sure that some of you on this call have received this email, have seen it, know exactly what we're talking about there. But that many people paid it that NatWest took so many calls, they had to start publishing on their website and publishing on the front page to encourage people just to stop paying money. Don't give your money out to these hackers. I managed to obtain a copy of this email from one of my colleagues who did receive this email. And I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to replicate this email. I'm going to send it out within an organization, which is something, if any of you have phishing attacks that are getting past your different various mail filters, it's a very good practice to take a real email that's coming in and making it safe to start with, and then sending a version around of that within your organization to see what would have happened if that had got a little bit further, if more people had clicked, but in a very safe environment. However, I copied this email. I used the Know4 dashboard for this, and I sent out this email. I didn't put a name in there. I could have self-populated the person's name who I was sending it to. I replaced the link with oldmacdonaldhadafishfarm.com. So I took that link. It's a bit of fun, really. I just wanted, it wasn't being too serious. The landing page would have been this landing page. It's the old Office 365. It's not the new one. I would have self-populated the email address, the clicker, and I would have seen. I was trying to see who would give me their password, and then press the sign-in button. There's a few errors with this page that I was hoping people might spot. The copyright is 2017 down the bottom. Secure-login.net is obviously the wrong web address. And again, it's something that's not been used since 2017 or 2018. Microsoft changed the Office 365 login experience. So I was hoping some people might not spot that. Here's my results. 100 people we sent that to. 100 people, 10 people opened that email, but scarily 16 people actually clicked on that link. So that means at least 6 people didn't actually open that email fully to read the whole email to make that call. Is this a phishing email or not? And there was some obvious glaring errors within that. Out of those 16 people who did go through to that landing page in Office 365, 13 people actually gave me their passwords from that simple email. Another email I like to send out, but not so relevant in today's world, but it's just to highlight sending a mass email to everybody at the same time, is our smoking policy has changed our company. So I've played on the words a little bit there. Again, I used Old MacDonald Had a Fish Farm if they did click on that link, but the main aim of this email was to see if they opened the smoking policy document from that and executed my payload that was within that. I had some coding in there. So from this, top right shows a 75% failure rate. It's very heavily failed. 36 people clicked and 24 people opened that attachment and tried to execute it. Even days later, we look down the bottom, you can't see the first number because it's hidden by that graph in the middle there, but the bulk of them were day one. But we can see the 17th, 18th, 19th of August, there was 9 failures, 4 failures a few days later, even the 23rd. So over a period of time, even though we sent the same email to everybody and we explained when they opened that page, this is a phishing attack, 5 to 6 days later, people were still clicking on this. And that's in an office environment where people were in the office together. They could talk about it. They could have talked about this smoking policy one while they're having a cigarette break. And it's always quite a popular one because all the smokers click, and then all the non-smokers, you begrudge the smokers that extra 5-minute break per day. They generally want to know the rules well. So imagine if we're not in an office environment. So when we are in the office, if somebody gets an email, they can put their hand up and say, I've just had this email, your colleagues can gather around, you can take a look, everybody can give their expert opinion on that. Is it a phishing attack? Is it not? You can have a laugh at it. But generally you've got the people around you that can help and assist. And there's always somebody who's in a room who will normally stand up and say, listen, anyone who's got this email, don't click on it from there. However, things have changed. We are working from home. It's phishing emails are failed on a more regular basis by employees working from home, and it could be to do with the fact we are trying to multitask. It's only very recently the kids went back to school. We are trying to look after the kids, trying to do 1,000 things. And in this particular image, is it even the user, the employee who's clicked on that link from there? So damage report, going back to earlier when we had 13 username and passwords, what can we do with 13 username and passwords? I mean, personally, I would wait until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I would reset the passwords on Office 365. It would then stop emails, would stop going through to your mobile phones or devices. It's most likely you're not online to receive that email. And then I've got access to the inbox from there. So what's in your inbox? We have maybe you've got purchase orders in there. Maybe you've got the CRM is connected to it. You've got some cloud-based applications. Maybe I can reset the password and the reset link comes through to that inbox. Maybe if I'm an employee and I've been there long enough, my banking emails and bits and pieces go there. So maybe I can try just have a look through the inbox. And maybe I can just take all of the emails, every single email from those 13 username and passwords I got earlier, those 13 users. Maybe I can just make it public from that. And I'm sure that would break some non-disclosure agreements that some companies would have, plus some investigations from the ICO and the relative authorities. It's not just small companies who this happens to. This happens to the best in the business. It happens to technology leaders in the market as well. It's all over the press. It's always there. There's isolated fraud. There's whaling emails. There's Google and Facebook there, for example. £100 million they paid out in phishing scams over a year. And some of them are really, really, really smart. The way it all happens. So it could be anybody. So if we look at the users as well from the phishing perspective and the password perspective, let's have a look at what they have to do. Users have a lot of passwords and usernames to remember nowadays, and people are often using password vaults. They've also got a lot of business applications which don't go through the VPN or firewalls anymore, which could possibly, they have to try and remember all these passwords. So it stands to reason that a user has the same password recycled a lot of times. There's a lot of sites that are in their personal life as well as their professional life. It's going to be the same password. And let's have a look at the trend of passwords from here as well. So in the 90s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was the most common password. I'm sure most of you have seen this before. From there. Since then, 30 years later, the only thing that's changed is on this page really is Macaulay Culkin's age. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is still the most dominant password in the market, and a few more have appeared since then. So we've made it harder to get past this, to encourage users to not use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. IT admin have come up with make it stronger. So we could maybe it's got to be 6 characters. It's got to, well, as this points out, really an uppercase, a lowercase, a gang sign, a hieroglyph, and the blood of a virgin to make your passwords. We've made it more difficult and more complex, which means that it's more likely that passwords are going to be recycled time and time again. If we give it a 30-day period or 2-month period before you have to change your password, it will normally end up in a sequence. It will just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and etc. going on. So have we made passwords easy to guess by trying to do this at the same time? And passphrases is a very good way of doing this, for the record. taking a look at these rules that IT have put into place, this is one which would have capital letters, little letters, numbers from there, and that is what we asked to create. And it, at the bottom there, it would take 70 centuries under a normal attack scenario to try and guess that password. It is pretty secure from there, but technology keeps getting faster, and as defenders, the attackers keep getting more and more sophisticated, and the technology improves, and then it comes down to the defenders to try and defend against that, and then the defense gets better and the attackers get better again. It's just a circle within cybersecurity that keeps happening. With this array, we can just point out down the bottom there, so an online attack scenario is 70 centuries, but an offline fast attack scenario, so just guessing the computer work, trying to guess, it's going to take about 36 minutes. Now, most two-factor authentication products will actually stop that because they expire after 32 seconds, the code. However, a massive cracking away scenario, so a lot of those computers together, that password can be broken 2.2 seconds from that. So what can we do with Joe? And how can we better protect Joe? How can we stop people trying to get his password from him, stop encouraging him, stop enticing him? So we can't, unfortunately, do this action. We can't replace the user and click OK. We need our employees. They're a very important part of our business. So if I take some stats from KnowBe4, one way of doing this is to reduce the failure rate of the phishing emails that are within the organization. So we can prove that the average failure rate is 27% from sending out 100 emails as a trial to a customer as a first-line attack. As you saw my emails earlier, they're not spectacularly difficult, and it's that we don't try to do that on the first email. Generally, the first email is very simplistic. It's designed for people to spot. We're not trying to catch people out. We're trying to just see what's happening, what they would do, how they would click, how they would respond, and then we can address that with some training. So we found that over a period of time of the phishing, and then creating a training library for them, which is customized to the user or user groups or your business. And the continual phishing, if we can reduce that down to 2.7%, but we'll talk about that later, what we can do after that 2%. So in effect, we are putting a bubble around the user, a bubble around Joe. We can do it one of the most important things to do is actually just ask questions within your own organization. And these particular questions on the screen aren't there designed to yes, no, right or wrong. This is, you agree or disagree. Asking questions about your own organization. Do you know what to do if you lose your password? Do you actually know where to go? Do you know who to raise this to? Do you know what support ticket to raise? As well as how do you know how to use the internet safely? So we're asking people what they would do, what they agree with, and what they disagree with. And then from that question, we can start pulling out some assessment results from there. So in this particular one, which again is live data from a customer, we have a 32% lack of understanding really on social media. Internet use is improved for this company over the average. Mobile device is still a little bit low. Passwords and authentication is a little bit low as well. So from these results, we can then start creating tailor-made training for our customers. So if we look at over that period of time, so look, we're going to have some mandatory training courses that as a business you want to everybody in that business. So it's going to be things like GDPR. Do you understand GDPR? Do you understand your responsibilities under GDPR? As well as free Wi-Fi, connecting to public Wi-Fi spots, etc. So there could be some mandatory ones you want to take off the back of those results and send those out, as well as divisionalized. So if we look at the top left there, we've got safe travels for road warriors. I really should update this a little bit, to be honest with you, because we're not really out there connecting to cafe Wi-Fi's or anything anymore, or being on the road. But if you have got a sales team who are out, then that could be a good course for them. And the same if you've got an accountancy firm, accountancy department, it could be that they get more phishing emails than a standard user, and it could be, can you pay this invoice, can you transfer this money? So they could have some training around how to deal with those, how to spot whaling attacks from there. Continually test employees as well is a good way to do that. So a quick one, high system, let's show them where they failed. So if they fail, we're not trying to be aggressive or angry to them or hold it against them, should I say. We just want to show the users where they went wrong. So the email they've got in this particular scenario, this is the landing page they would have landed on. We are highlighting this as a phishing email. and we want to show them where the mistakes are that we've purposely put into that phishing email. We don't want to send a perfect email. We're not here to send a perfect email just to trick people to fail. We want to increase awareness from that. Should we can do some training off the back of that. Should they have failed that phishing email, we can put some little criteria and rules into place. So if it's their first failure in 6 months, they get the 5-minute video. If it's their second failure, they get a 10-minute video. Third failure might get the 2-hour one as a bit of punishment, to be fair, from that. But we can all that's fully customizable. So that's how we would get it from 27% down to 2%. So let's look at Joe as well. So split that down and put that bubble around Joe. So let's fish Joe before someone else does, and train Joe, which is some of the examples we just shared there. Let's try and make Joe's password disposable. Earlier, as I showed with the passwords, multi-factor authentication is quite important. It should be turned off for business applications as well as personal applications. Anyone who's got Facebook, Instagram, it's all supported on there. It's free of charge. So log on to really turn that on. Same with your Apple, iCloud, etc. But also, if you've got a working environment, try and have it turned on for as much as possible. Is Joe? It's IT could normally poke their head around the corner and say, Chris isn't in China today. He's definitely at his desk. That's definitely not him coming through our network. At the moment, we've got cloud applications that are not going and completely bypassing the firewalls. And how do we know Joe is Joe? And there's some good products which you can speak about, SD-WANs, and also take away Joe's admin rights for all areas. Every phishing email, every execution of ransomware is trying to escalate admin rights on a computer. If you don't have the admin rights, you can't execute the said ransomware. So a good PAM solution would be good for that. We have got some free tools which all of you can take a look at today. So we've got some weak password test. So you can download that. It's free. A run on your Active Directory. It won't give you your users' passwords, but it will tell you if they're using a weak password, and also if they're using the same password in more or a variation of that password on more than one site from that. We've also got, after this, you can completely have a free security phishing test. So we're quite willing to send out 100 emails within your business, quite simple ones. Let's have a look. Let's see what your results would be. And there are some other free tools there, like the breach password test as well, which should go into the dark web and see what's out and about in there, what's information's for sale. And we've got some ransomware simulators. We want to see if that would. It's a very good little tool there. So to execute. It will take a ghost image of your machine and execute ransomware against that and see if your AV or your security products would have stopped or blocked it from there. So some great free tools. Please speak to the team afterwards and they'll be more than happy to take you through them. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions? I don't think we've got any in the chat function at the moment. Any? Yeah, hang on, we've got some coming through. Chris, if a phishing email comes into your inbox, at what point is it dangerous? Unopened in inbox and opened with preview open.
It's sorry, can you? I missed a little bit of that. Can you just repeat that?
Yeah. If you have a phishing email into your inbox, at what point is it dangerous? Is it dangerous if it's an opened in your inbox or an opened with the preview open, or do you have to, physically go into it and click through onto links for it to become potentially hazardous?
There's a couple of ways of answering it. It depends on the email that comes into it. So some, like marketing emails, if you scroll over a certain pixel, it's technically counted as a click within that email. There's no harm in opening an email. There's generally not the attachments. There's no harm in. You shouldn't. I would encourage you to open an email fully. And take a look at that email and look at things. Look at copyrights. You'll see that most of the Apple emails that go out that you'll see in the environment have really old copyrights or no copyrights or don't have the right information. So open it and scroll. Really avoid clicking on the links from that. If I were you, if you are think about hovering over the link, I would really check where that's going to. Make sure you believe that's a genuine login. If it's please reset your password, then I would really highly recommend that you, if you've got one from your bank or something, for example, don't go on that email. Log into your bank from yourself and then take a look. If you don't trust an attachment, either send it to your IT department or just don't click it, or send a separate email to the sender and ask them if it's genuine from it.
Brilliant. Got another one from Nick. Do you see a rise in business email compromise and CEO/invoice fraud due to remote working?
Yes, yes, everything's on the rise. Unfortunately, phishing has risen massively. It does include attacks on finance. It's a bit more harder. Some of those breaches I spoke about earlier were invoices between MDs and FDs and accounts teams. And can you please pay this invoice? Before they could normally speak to them straight away and say, "Why did you just send me this email? You're across the office to me. Did you check this? Did you send this?" So there has been a massive increase in that as well, because maybe you can't check. Maybe that and quite often they are normally scoping out the FD or MD and making sure they're on a day off that day or not available. Maybe they're in a business meeting. Maybe they're in maybe on this webinar right now and been kept busy for a minute. So somebody can send that email and somebody can respond quite quickly to that. So there has been an increase from all phishing attacks on all areas.
Brilliant. Let me just have a look. How dangerous is a deleted phishing email? Should we delete it forever immediately, kind of the double delete?
If you delete a phishing email, it's possible. If you're a home user at home, delete it and double delete. That's a very good tactic. If you are a business, I would highly recommend that you. I'm very sure that your business has a phishing email address. It probably has an email for you to send emails to IT. If you double delete or delete an email from your inbox, you've spotted it. Well done for spotting that email. Is somebody else in your organization is going to spot the same things you did with that email? If you press delete, then the company hasn't been warned, which means that somebody 3 hours later could click on that email. If you pass it to IT and you've got a service which they can do, I'd recommend giving it to your IT team so they can then warn everybody and they can already have blocked it. So because of that warning, if somebody clicked on that email still 3 hours later, if it was in their inbox and already got past it all, the link might already be blocked. The attachment might already be blocked from executing. IT could have done something about it.
Got another one here. So it seems that it's very focused on kind of blaming, well, not blaming, but saying, it's the end user's kind of responsibility to make sure that we don't click through the links. Are there any, it says, surely we should be protecting the systems from phishing. Can this be done?
Absolutely. Today's webinar was about what happens when these phishing emails get through. It's impossible to stop phishing emails coming through, no matter what the technology you have. It's very easy to send the perfect phishing email, which would pass all email filters. It would pass everything to get through to you. It would pass all the rules of that you should have with humans. So, like, am I expecting the email? Generally, I'm expecting the email. Yes or no. If I'm not, maybe I should be more dubious. If I am expecting that email, then I should. But if I was in HR, for example, and I sent on response to your job application, please find attached my CV, you're most likely going to click it because it is a email that's you're kind of not expecting, but you are expecting it. You want people, so you are going to open that attachment and think nothing of it, maybe, possibly. So there's lots of things we can do out there to increase to stop the flow of phishing emails coming through. But it's what we do after that. Today, what we've concentrated is what happens after those phishing emails come through. We don't want to blame employees. We think we should educate employees. It's not just for their work life, it's for their personal life as well, to protect themselves and not to give their own bank details away as well. So it's an education of the employees and a raising awareness of what's happening in the market from there. But yeah, there's plenty. We could have an entire other session about what we could put in front of the employee to stop those hundreds of emails getting through. But it's unfortunately only takes one of them to get through, and one person then to fail that.
Well, another one saying you didn't cover text messages, but do the same rules kind of apply? I suppose it's slightly harder with text messages because you can't see, like, you can't hover over the link in there.
Absolutely. So it's incredibly rare that any business will send you a text message. There's a whole host of I get them as myself on my own phone, and I'm really quite cautious of where I leave my information, because it's about where I leave my information. It's about how how people obtain my email and how they obtain my mobile phone number. I get one from HMRC. I get them from various places. Again, don't listen to if it's HMRC. They're more likely going to call you. They're going to send you a letter. They advise in their letters they don't text you. from that. So if you are getting these sort of emails, these sort of text messages, don't click on the link given to you in the text message. If it's the Royal Mail, which is a common one, if it is the Royal Mail and you have missed the delivery, just directly go onto their direct website and check. The same rules apply. What are you expecting a parcel to begin with?
Another one from Philip. Are there any particular webinar systems safer or less safe, e.g. Zoom had bad press earlier this year and was banned by some companies?
Yes, unfortunately, I don't know the best ones for the different ones. Nick Harness maybe able to answer that on here. So yeah, it's not my area to know which ones are better than each one. Sorry.
Again, I suppose it also depends on kind of the IT that you got in place within your company as well.
Yeah, exactly the same. But you know, going back to the same rules as well. Encourage your employees to send out the webinar invites because it's not, you could have the safest one out there. You could choose the safest one we have here. But if your employees are accepting Google Hangouts, Zoom invites, Team invites, all of them from other people they're speaking to, I'm sure that most businesses have a customer facing part of their business which may require them to join lots of external webinars, then it's try and encourage your employees to send the invite out. You've obviously secured those, and again, educate the user on what are they expecting that invite? Is it something they should check with the sender if they are very much unsure on a separate email? Completely don't do anything with that invite. Type a brand new email to that person just in case it's just a little bit of data which is showing the same email address, and from there, if you are downloading anything like you probably did today for this Zoom meeting, just double check the source before you press run or save, and just make sure it's genuine. And if you don't trust it, don't do it. Just don't click it.
Because we've also had, I mean, in terms of sending emails out personally, we've had emails come in which looks like it's from our chief executive, but it turns out it's not. And some of it's very kind of like just asking short, sharp questions, which we'd almost expect. And even I've responded to one, but is there any way we can double check that when it does, you know, it does seem like the correct language and it doesn't have the signature because it says signed up by iPhone, or is it just a case of hovering over the email address?
Absolutely. So the email address is a good one. It's normally a little bit of information. Most companies, they are thankfully moving to SPF records, so it is double checking the sender, which is verifying that is the right domain it's come from. So it's getting harder and harder to mask an email address overwards. But even if they've managed it, if you click on the email address within that email, sorry, it's got to be from the from. Don't there's an email address in the email body. Don't click on that. But if there's an email address from the from person, double click on it. It'll always show you, or hover over it. It will show you a longer email address. You might see it says hotmail@appleid.com. It may say a whole host of things. So that is a very much a one that is a good one to catch people. I used to use the sent from iPhone as an excuse not to use signatures when I was sending out phishing attacks. However, it's most companies, even if I now send an email from my iPhone, it will automatically attach a signature each time to it still. So just watch that one. It's become less and less that businesses will have sent from my iPhone. It will still generally always attach a signature to there. And again, it's the same rules, same principles. If it looks like it's from the chief executive, maybe ask your line manager, were you expecting this? Has everybody got this? And somebody can take that higher within the business, or pass it straight to IT and ask them to check it's genuine.
Another question from Zach. Who is vulnerable to a phish attack? Is it just a certain department or a certain job role?
No, it's actually anybody within a business. Every single person is just as vulnerable. There are better protected people within a company. There could be users that are, they might be very much segmented within their network. You only work on this, you can only have access to this, and you've got 0 admin rights, and you've only got these 5 applications that you're allowed to use whitelisted. It would not affect them so much. But anybody within a business can be the weak link, and it can come. I mean, we've got some great stories. I mean, once. What we did was we pretended to be a cleaning company. So, and what we did was we just turned up as cleaners to an office building, and we were allowed straight in the door. Nobody stopped us. And what we did was we took all the keyboards and the pads off of people's desks. And on the keyboards, we flipped them all around and there was passwords written on there. So we'd obtained them. We'd given everyone basically a new keyboard. And on our pads from that, we looked through the pads and saw if we could have, if there was passwords written down. It's funny, but on my phone, it showed up as a memory not too long ago. I had a photo of somebody's pad with their username, passwords for certain systems, etc., etc. So, yes, anybody within a business can fall for anything.
We've got a question from Nick. Given the deep fakes that have been seen recently, what danger do these pose?
There's it's a massive danger with the deepfake videos at the moment. It's to the point where I was really watching that Tom Cruise one quite, and it was good, wasn't it? It was really, really good, and you're seeing him pop up on Facebook quite often. I'm sure it's on all the others like TikTok and the like as well. But even I'm watching it and I'm seeing people, they're saying, guess this code, and it's that person, so I'm going to give £100,000, and it's just people trying to gather people who gather people's information about them. And I'm sure on Facebook we've all seen these these videos are saying, can you post this, can you post that, and we've seen these just questionnaires going out on Facebook at a minute, like name your first pet, name your favorite son. It's exactly the same scenario, but it does look very, very genuine, and that data is for sale somewhere, there's no doubt about it. If we take a look at like that, my best friend, and you put my best friend's name is this, my favorite place to eat is a burger, my favorite holiday I've ever had, and people can start guessing your some of your passwords from that, but also they can also start guessing from that's from your first pet, but they can also now send you the perfect email, and you put your job title on that, you maybe work at Barclays, maybe you are just low, or maybe you're very, very senior within that business, but from that, they can send a perfect email to you by giving you a £20 voucher for your favorite burger bar that you might go to on a Friday, or your holiday, your best holiday that you've ever been to, or if they know your first pet's name, or maybe you've even given your first pet's, is it a dog, is it a cat? Man, they can start really targeting you as a person and as an individual to get to you, to get to you as a person to get your money, or to get to you to get into your business that you work for.
Got a question from Philip. If you encrypt your machine, can the phishing link get in?
If you encrypt your machine, sorry. If you have encryption on your emails, a phishing email can still get in. There's a whole series on this we could do on that, but yes. So if you're only accepting emails from a certain individual and you've both got obviously the right tokens to identify each other, then you're probably not going to get a phishing email to come in. If you're just talking about basic disk encryption within your disk, you obviously unencrypt your machine every time you log into it, and it decrypts itself. So could a phishing email, if you're connected to the internet, you are receiving emails from an outside source, a phishing email can still execute within your machine. I think the only thing that might stop that is if you also didn't have the admin rights at the same time, or very restricted, so that the payload couldn't be delivered from, let's say, the example, like the Word document, for example, if there's a payload within there.
In terms of if someone did click through, if they had a phishing email, they fell for it, they clicked through, they put all their information in, press send or whatever else, what would kind of be the next steps then if they suddenly realise, actually this wasn't from Barclays, or it wasn't from the CEO, and I've fallen for it? What would kind of the next steps be?
It's so if it's something that you had to log into first, whatever you've just logged into, and whether this is from personal or business type, if it's your personal, if it's business, straight away contact your IT, give them a call straight away from that. If it's your personal, if it's anything that's personal, reset that password immediately. So if you've given your eBay account, or you've logged into your emails, or whichever you've done to log into that fake page, go separately into that, to the real eBay account, reset your password immediately, report yourself as breached if you can, if you've got that option. As soon as you change your password, the password you've given to them can't be then used against you, because you've already moved on, you've got a separate password. They would get continued failure to log in. From that, if you give payment card details, you should call your bank immediately and cancel your card. If you've most cards now on you've got application on your phone, you can block your card. immediately. So I just quickly can load up my app, and I'm using, for example, like NatWest. You can use facial recognition. You can go in, you can block your card immediately. So I would recommend doing that as well. From a business perspective, be honest with your IT team. A lot of people, they suspect they might have just done something wrong, but might just think, okay, maybe it is, maybe it's not. So they're unsure. I'm not saying so. They're just unsure, and maybe carry on with their day, and in the background something more sinister is happening. But please report to IT immediately as soon as you think. And even after the event, there's many. I've been stood in front of people. I've been showing. I showed once an Apple ID email that I was sending out to people, and the lady said, I had that email this morning, and I went and passed my details. And off she said, come go back to your computer and show me this email. She showed it to me. I was like, that's 100% phishing. You need, and she had to just reset her Apple ID immediately. I also recommend having two-factor authentication on Apple ID, the same as Instagram, Facebook. I within the settings in each one of those, they will have 2FA, and it will send you a code, or even if it just pops up on your smartphone, just say, did you just log into this area? Accept. If you're logging in between, obviously, let's say you try to log on on your laptop into Instagram, your mobile phone will alert you. Facebook will say, go to the code generator. So you go into Facebook on your app mobile, you load your code generator, then you can log in via your PC. So I would recommend turning on 2FA for everything like your Apple ID as well.
Which nicely leads on to the next question, which is, are Apple devices considered safer to use generally?
Is it, is it not? There is a known fault with apps on Google Play Store. Sorry, there's no known fault with all apps. There is a more higher percentage of apps have gaps in them, whereas the Apple ecosystem is more self-contained, and it goes through quite strict approval processes and testing. And then obviously, if something gets it's very community funded there as well. So community feedback is taken into account there, where if something gets a bad review, constantly be literally removed the day after. So yes and no. If Apple's going to get one, it might be slightly bigger. It could be more of a breach. But there's a lot of Google Play, which have got a higher percentage of apps have something wrong, or a possible fault that can be exploited within them.
Is two-factor authentication a really good solution, especially for email login? So if the attackers do get through, they can't get control of everything.
Absolutely. Sorry, yeah, and I should recorrect it. I've been saying 2FA myself. It should be MFA these days. It's actually called multi-factor authentication. But yes, it's the same scenario as your bank. So your bank give you a card reader, and you've got a PIN number in your mind, which only your mind, and then you've got a card. And when you go onto your banking, you can log into your bank with just your username and password. So you look at your bank balance and go, that's great, I've got some good money in the bank. If you go to then pay somebody £50 or £100 or set up a new account, it will ask you to take your card reader out and place it into your card reader and into your PIN number to generate a code. And that's called a challenge response way of multi-factor authentication. What you can do, what that's really testing, what that's really testing is, you are who you say you are. So you've given a username and password, but they could be compromised. They could be very easily obtained. The next part is, you need to have something in your hand, something you now own, and then you need to know something in your mind a little bit more, your PIN number, and you're less likely to ever give your PIN number away than you are your banking username and password, because it's never generally asks you for a PIN number unless it's on the telephone when you're calling up your internet PIN. So you've got the card reader and you've got the card, and you put them together and you know your PIN. So now it's more verified that you are who you say you are, because you've gone through those physical stages, and that's what it's trying to do. So yes, multi-factor is a good tool. It depends on the setup you mentioned just now about MFA. For when you log into a machine, if you have multi-factor authentication, then you're kind of in a single sign-on, so it's remembering your other Microsoft passwords, log you in the background. From that, it's always a good thing, and your password becomes disposable. That is the key criterion. Generally, a business type of multi-factor authentication will require you to know a PIN number. It might require you to have a mobile application. It may require you to have a physical token. You push the button. The beginning of your password is generally your PIN number, the 6-digit code that any code generator may generate is generally made up of the time, and it's time stamped, and it's a randomized number which is synced to between the token and the server. So yes, it's a very good way of protecting users.
And in terms of storing passwords, is there anywhere safe you can store your password? Because it is, I mean, obviously in this kind of day and age, there's so many places where you need a password for, and like you said, we all know that we shouldn't do the same one repeatedly.
Yeah,
but it's hard to remember them all. So
it is. So yeah, and I was thinking something really funny then, which was a book, which is a password book, which I've seen for sale before. So put your passwords down in this book. But there are some password, there are products out there that generate passwords and store passwords. There's some great products on the market. It's now it's a tough one. You only need to lose that password. So now I've got all your passwords. So, so if that was ever compromised, if your machine was possibly compromised and it's already signed in, and then maybe that's just an extension on Google where your password manager is, can I get, one password gets me all? It's a sophisticated attack, it's possible. If it's if you're just keeping them written down or making variations, but the best thing I can do if a product can't have MFA turned on, is to use phrases for different sites. Use phrases, use numbers, and use letters. So if a phrase becomes 16, 18 digit characters, and it could be I love Mickey Mouse or something like that with some capitals in the right places and stuff, it becomes a much longer password, and it becomes much harder to guess. And you could, I mentioned variations of passwords. A variation of password that is quite common. If you force somebody to change their password every 30 days, they're going to add one on the end, 2, 3, 4. When we look at phrases, maybe you could change that phrase, and you are changing quite a portion of that password. So it's maybe I love Disney, but it could be I love Pluto for another site that you're not so worried about. But if you, to me, for my passwords that can't be supported by MFA, I have banking level passwords, which is where I can access anything that holds my financial details, which includes maybe my shopping, which has got my bank card saves. So anything that's got financial, I have a much stronger mind of passwords, the length of password, and a structure to that password. Then have secondary passwords, and maybe shorter that I can remember better, which would be for things that just contain a bit of my personal data, which is not the biggest deal if anything happens. And then I have, when you've got to sign up to something, you have to sign up, and I've got some really rubbish passwords for those ones as well. And to bypass any of those criteria, they go, your password is not secure. I literally use password, and it could be a letter, and then it could be a symbol. And I actually just use password with a capital P, letter, symbol for those ones that I just need to sign up, and it doesn't matter if I lose that password, which is great, because sometimes I get a phishing email back into me, or an email to say, we've got your password, this is your password, we're going to shut you down tonight. I'm like, yeah, I know I left that on a site I didn't really care about, and I'm glad it's that site that's been compromised and not one of the major ones.
This one might be a tricky one, but we're talking about going back to educating the end user. It's hard work and it's not 100% effective. What are the authorities doing about this, and who can we lobby? So I don't know if you'll have the answer to that one, but I would ask it anyway.
But you do have the National Cybersecurity Centre, who are constantly trying to push training. There's many training information on their website. They have free training videos for people, members of public, and workers, and to guide businesses as well. Obviously, the businesses are guided by different ISO accreditation. So if we look at and if your business is trying to, maybe it's a basic one like Cyber Essentials, training your employees on there, and you need to show a track record of training them. If you're a slightly bigger company, maybe not even size, but you are trying to go to get an ISO, you need to show that you have an established risk. So what is the risk to my employees? What am I doing about it? And you need to show that you've trained your employees and keep a record of that, just like you would for fire drills, and just like you would for fire alarm tests, and just like you would for health and safety. So it's quite heavily linked, and businesses are given that information to do so. And then on top of that, there are some products out there like we mentioned with Know before, who really specialize in it and have got maybe a different way of doing it, and maybe lots of different content. For example, Know before has 1,000 different courses. Some are videos, some are, and it appeals to different types of audiences. So have a look. There is plenty of free stuff online as well, which can help.
Are static IP addresses safer?
I wouldn't like to get into that one. There's arguments for all of it, to be fair. But I'll let someone a little bit more technical on that side of things answer that.
I've got another one. How safe is Apple keychain? So that the one, in case anyone doesn't know, it's where it links all your passwords, and then the keychain one.
It's the same scenario. And I was just thinking of a scenario in my mind there. Do you remember? Look at Face ID at the moment. I'm struggling with Face ID because every time I'm or any facial recognition on any of my devices, I'm struggling because I'm in a shop and I want to either pay with my phone and my mask is in the way at the moment, and I really want to go back to fingerprints. To be honest with you, it's much easier for me to do. But imagine if you're asleep, and we've all seen those funny memes on probably some social media where your girlfriend is possibly getting your thumbprint against your phone. So that's how secure it is. So it's as secure as anybody could get into it now. And there's been some, there was a conversation I had once before, which was, and I lost this conversation definitely, which is we can spend all this money on trying to really keep that person safe. And they've got this laptop, it's inside a suitcase, it's got a chain, it's got a lock, it's inside a bigger room. How are we going to get into that? And, you know, we've done all this protection, we put all these layers around something, and a man walks up to that guy with a steel bar and hits him on the head and goes, "Give me your password." So again, you've now got that password from that person. It's the same scenario. Give me your phone. Unlock your phone for me. You know, so can it still be compromised? Yeah, but is it? But so that's how easy it could be compromised. That is a way of compromising that password. But it's the same scenario again. And if you have got your Apple, I'd recommend that you turn on your MFA, because your MFA will detect anybody trying to sign in and notify you from a different IP address, location, different device. If it doesn't match your device, if it doesn't match your operating system version, it will notify you and tell you, and you're not approving it. It's up to you to approve that or not from there.
Okay, and last one, but if you do get the emails, I mean, I'm sure we've all had them. You have the emails where it's threatened, you know, I know your password, transfer me £1,000 immediately, otherwise, you know, I'll disable everything, or I'll email all your friends. Or, I mean, how much of a serious threat should we take of those? I usually just delete them.
It is a compromised password. Let's be fair. Those emails come from a compromised website, which I alluded to earlier as well. So thankfully, I use a very bad one. Sometimes I got emails warning me. So, you know, there's a car club that I signed up to a long time ago because I needed to get some information. There was a thread of people who were on there, and I had something wrong with my car, and I was really trying to figure out what was wrong with my car. And this website seemed to have the answers. Unfortunately, BMW website of some description. So I signed up and I gave them I have 2 email addresses or 3 email addresses. I have one which is very personal, which is quite only give to certain people, certain individuals. Professional one, that's my personal professional one, and then I have some rubbish ones, and I've got a real spam one which goes on everything that I don't ever want to hear from again. So my middle one, I will use my middle email address sometimes. So for this BMW website, I went onto their, not the BMW website, I don't want to get them confused, it was just one around BMW's forums. So from there, I've signed up and I've given them a bad password, a terrible password, and I've used this email. I heard via the email a year later, we got hacked, and they disclosed it, and they said we got hacked, we lost certain information. Fast forward a couple of months, I'm receiving emails to tell me this is my password, and that is the password that I know I've used for that website, because it was a rubbish one, and I used BMW inside the password because I didn't care. I only want to access that site once. So I knew that came exactly from that breach. So to be fair, that password, and when they display it and say, this is your password, please transfer us £1,000, anywhere you've kept that password, go and reset that password immediately. It could be a little bit too late on some scenarios. You might find that you're sending out emails in the background. Maybe they've already got access to your Outlook account or to your Hotmail account or Live account, but try and reset that password immediately. Try to remember where that password relates to if they are disclosing it. if it doesn't contain your password, it's probably just a phishing email, and it's probably an auto forward when somebody has been compromised, where it starts emailing 30 to 60, 100,000 people from that compromised inbox.
And we have one last one, I promise. This is the last one now. Would you suggest changing email addresses every few years?
I don't know about email addresses. That's a really good question. We're running out of email addresses, aren't we? So I'm very lucky that I jumped on the bandwagon quite quick the moment that some like Live instead of Hotmail, when Live came out, I jumped on it. So I managed to get my kind of first name dot last name, which is quite thankful. So yes and no. I recommend that you move on to an email every few years. So as I mentioned earlier, I have a main one, which is my professional one. But my first email address I had 10 years ago is definitely my spam email now, and it's a Yahoo email address. And everything goes to that. So if I've got to sign up to something like, oh, you leave your email address, it goes to that. Unless it's a receipt, it goes to my Medium email address. So what happens though over a period of time is my Medium was at one point my personal professional one, but it started to get a bit clogged up with a bit more spam coming through. So I moved on to the next one. So it could be that you do it in that manner. So could you move on and if you start leaving your information, because it's the whole idea, it's where you leave your information. That's how you obviously get onto these marketing lists, and it's how you get all these emails come into you. So if you have just a personal one that you like to keep just for you and not really too much, then just use that and leave that in places that you trust. It could be like the likes of eBay or the bigger Amazon and stuff. So because you want your receipt, you want to know when the latest movie's coming out and stuff, but don't leave it on any old site, because you will start getting spams, and you will start realizing that you visited a website, created an account for something quite trivial, like I mentioned earlier about trying to get some updates on BMW parts, and you might find that you start getting a whole host of emails from all these different companies thereafter. And that kind of then ruins that email address that you think. So maybe it's time to move on.
Brilliant. Well,